Assalamu alaikum, peace. It's Fatimah, Coach Fatimah, 1/3 of Outstanding Personal Relationships and co-author of the new book, Let's Talk Polygamy Uncensored. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this Thursday's live webinar on how to share your husband without destroying your marriage. Such an incredible topic. It's so needed, and I will be getting into that shortly, but I really wanted to make sure I had this topic on hand because I've had so many questions about it and what I've actually done and what I coach and counsel and especially train on. So I'm going to get into some of those topics and more. So make sure you have something to write with and write on. And this is a little bit interactive. So get excited about this live webinar on how to share your husband without destroying your marriage. So be back right after a word. Once again, Assalamu alaikum, peace. It's Fatimah, Coach Fatimah, co-founder of Outstanding Personal Relationships. And I am so excited to be bringing this live webinar event to you all about how to share your husband without destroying your marriage. It's such an incredible topic, and we're going to get into it because we think about it. If we think about polygyny and how men practice polygyny, or maybe have the desire to, or maybe they're in it as we speak or currently, or they want to down the line, one of the major concerns is how to share your husband. So I'm going to get into that and more, but I wanted to make sure I welcome you and thank you all for spending this time with this live event. Make sure that you comment within the comments on a scale of 1 to 10. How excited are you for this particular topic? Although it might not be easy, let's see how excited you are to receive this awesome information. And with that, let me know where you're tuning in from. What part of the world, what city, what state, what continent, what country are you tuning in from? I would love to know where you guys are at. We know that with OPR, we've met so many awesome people from all over the world, from all walks of life, and had the pleasure to either working with them, coaching or counseling them, or bringing these live events to you from each one of your coaches, either myself, Coach Fatimah, Coach Nazir, or Coach Nyla. Shout out to them. Family. So let's just make sure that we jump into this event. I want to share some information with you. So be sure that you have something to write with and write on. I trust a short pencil over long memory any day. Because I know I need to write notes, because you might want to revisit your notes as well. So also, since this is something that's extremely important, have some, offer yourself some grace. I'm trying to say if I could speak. Offer yourself some grace and some patience in this process as we go through this training. So you're going to want to be sure to have some peace in your heart so that you can receive this information. So let's get right into it. Let's get right off into this training. Back. Okay. So polygyny, perspective, purpose, and peace is really what this series is about, or this webinar series is live training, and how to share your husband without destroying your marriage. So a couple of things right before we begin. Of course, we're going to run down the line of, we're going to go get into some introduction, some about me, some overview, and get right into the meat and potatoes of perspective, purpose, and peace in polygyny. This is for long-term success. So having decent communication or effective communication skills, and building and maintaining trust. And we're going to go through a review toward the end as well. So let's make sure, again, have something to write on, something to write with. So the purpose of this is to make sure that we're continuing our relationship education. I'm a coach. I have to do it as well, so that we can get a specific understanding as wives who are in polygyny, and we're not the husbands. So our lives are led differently within this lifestyle. And I want to pay close attention to that as always. And also to gain a understanding about our relationships and becoming more familiar and more skilled and knowledgeable. One of the things I really wanted to be sure that I asked for as a practicing Muslim and making dua is understanding and knowledge of whatever was going on around me. And I'm really thankful that I did that, because it really opened up my eyes to so much, especially that polygyny was not just happening to me. This is an interactive education. So let's get excited. So let me know down in the comments how excited you are to get this information. And what would that be? Is it because you might get some clarity on some things, or you're glad that we're actually having this training or keeping this education going within the polygyny community? Because it's not easy, because we know we're met with a lot of judgment when we do talk about marriage, and especially specifically polygyny. Now, for me as a coach, I help women on all walks of life continue their education in these specific areas: the challenge of emotion, newness, nuance, embracing that new normal, and trying to lead that true life of fulfillment that really, really just starts with you. It started with me. Sometimes unbeknownst to me, I wasn't too sure about, what I was supposed to do or what my role was in it. Let's talk a little bit about meeting your coach. Myself, Coach Fatimah, I have something special that I really want to share with you all very briefly. But if you want to know a little bit about me, stay tuned. I want to share something special with you right now. What's so awesome about who enjoyed that? Make sure you let me know down in the comments if you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up down in the comments. What I want to share with you all, something that's so interesting and important, is that to see my two parents on one slide together was pretty incredible because they didn't last very long. They were broken up by the time I was 3 years old, and I lost touch with my mother for a long time, over a decade after that, until I reconnected with her. And I was almost in high school at that time. So to see them on the slide was just within that part of the presentation was pretty difficult, because I knew I didn't want that end result in my journey in marriage. And I didn't want what my grandparents had, which was another broken relationship. And it was really devastating to know that my parents didn't make it and then go through brokenness again with my grandparents. So that was really, really, really tough. So just saying, so you could know a little bit more about me, why making sure that when I married for the long term, not the short term. And nobody goes into marriage saying, yeah, I hope this crashes and burns. I just really want to fail at this right now. So how many of you can relate when you think about wanting to be successful in marriage? I know full well that that's something that really frightened me, to not be successful in marriage. And sometimes polygyny for some might look like a failure. I want to get into that a little bit more within this live event, this live webinar, this live training. So let's get right back into it right now. So these pictures are of my loved ones, whether they're still with us or not. My sister is pictured down in the corner toward the left. She passed away after a very vicious battle with childhood brain cancer. So the age difference between us was 13 years. So she did feel like a child of mine in many ways, as I helped raise her along with a few of the other adults in our family, her parents. We shared the same father, but not the same mother. So it was really devastating to lose her. So that's why she's within the circle of loved ones here. So yes, I hope you guys learned a little bit more about me and my journey, and why marriage was so important for me to see it through. A few things that I know that some have issues with, specifically with marriage, and especially marriage and polygyny, is that what happens is we have an issue with polygyny, perspective, purpose, and then finding peace. So these three areas are vital. Again, and you'll hear me repeat that word because I want to use a word that's very powerful. And I think about the vitality or vital signs or those types of things that surround that word, because it speaks to the magnitude of wanting our marriages to work and what we're willing to do or not do for that to happen. So let's get right into it. Okay. Let's get right into it. Perspective, purpose, and peace. Now, let's talk about mindset mastery, and that goes right into it. Let's talk about perspective in marriage and polygyny. Men and women are not the same. We say it all the time, and we mean it all the time. Wives do not share the same perspectives on topics such as marriage, relationships, betrayal, trust, and oftentimes polygyny and loyalty. That's a big one, and much, much more. I find that in my own personal experience, the way I kind of calibrated loyalty and betrayal and trust and love was quite different than the way in which my husband did it. And that didn't mean his way was wrong. It just meant he processed it in a much different way than I did, because I was living in polygyny as a woman or a wife, not a husband. So that is extremely important. And understanding that his perspective was different than mine. So understanding that our perspective, the perspective of our spouse, is different when it comes to connection, empathy, trust, respect, and endearment, especially respect. I was speaking on that briefly in my Quintessential Queens live, where I was saying that the way men and women measure respect is different. I had to learn from the three men in my life, my grandfather, my father, and my husband, what respect meant to them individually as men. Now, not men that had the same behaviors or actions or inspirations or intentions, but Men just the same. I knew that if the three of them reached a certain point, let's say there was an issue where they individually, not together, as they did not get into it together, had a dispute with someone. They handled that dispute differently than I did. And my father always told me, if you have an issue with a boy, you come get me. You come get your grandfather. And ultimately, I went and got my husband if I had a dispute, which these were rare instances, but it was very important to understand that my father, my grandfather, my husband were telling me that, listen, I have to put this behavior that this man or this boy or this person is exhibiting toward you that is male in a certain energy, which you don't have the power to do. Now, I can hoop and howl and yell, but the element of danger that many men carry with them is important. We think about somebody acting up in an airport, and it might take 5, 6, 10 men to take them down because they're so upset that it's reached a point, a boiling point, where they no longer care about who's watching, what's going on. They just know that whatever's in front of them that caused the issue has to be dealt with. Now, I'm not speaking to like mental health issues and some people that just take and clear a desk at an airport or whatever the case may be. I'm speaking to true disrespect in the world of men. So let's move on. Purpose is incredibly important. I thought about my purpose as a wife, as a mother, in polygyny. I said, this looks so much different than the purpose that my husband had. What drives him, what propels him forward as a man, as a father to children that are not biologically my children. However, I stand in support and love and care and nurture as much as I can, right? But his purpose for doing and the way in which he moves is different. But when we know we have purpose in our own lives and we're not hyper focused on our spouse, the beauty of that is understanding that our spouses, although they are our spouses, they have to lead a life of their own as an individual. I had to have my own set of things that I needed to do outside of just merely being, which I'm not trying to downplay it, but just merely being the wife of Nazir or one of the wives of Nazir. I had to have other things and attributes and balls in motion because I'm a mother. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm an aunt, and there's so many different hats to wear. I'm an artist, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an author, I'm a coach, I'm a counselor. There's so many things. And especially with being a Muslim woman, I had to prioritize my religious and spiritual practices. So I said, okay, I can't hyper focus on what he's doing and not have a schedule of my own and some things that I need to do as a wife that made sense in the area of self-care. That's so much under my own, my umbrella of my life's purpose that I need to be focused on, that to hyper focus on my spouse was not serving me. Now, I had to learn this. I didn't just pop up one day and just show up as this healed woman. I went through a lot and a lot of emotions, and I put a lot of thought into things that maybe I shouldn't have. So having a productive life is important because it provided me with clarity and it increased my motivation specifically because once I had things on my calendar to do and goals to achieve, then I was highly motivated because I wanted to feel better and I wanted to create meaning for myself and boost my own resilience. Not to just say I burn and run myself into the ground. Absolutely not. But I knew I had to focus on my healing and my work that I had to do for me. Now, one question. Now, somebody asked me this. Who wants a marriage of mediocrity? Now, put your hand up in the comments if that's what you want. If that's the goal, you want a marriage that's mediocre. And I knew I didn't. I wanted a marriage that was outstanding. But that didn't mean I wasn't going to bump my head and have to try new things and learn and take accountability. So, and I spoke to this before, but men do indeed, and women practice purpose in a number of different ways. So we both are capable of having purpose, and the men might be different in the way they move about it. But for men in the art and the practicing of polygyny, they think oftentimes, and I've had to listen to men I've had to hear the stories of men. I've had to listen to my own husband and watch and be in rooms when he's training, or, listening just to his personal stories. And then, there's some things he must keep for himself, absolutely. But to sit there and go, let me listen to this. This is important information. They might say, well, I feel like I need to move forward and practice polygyny. And we may disagree with that, but there might be a me, we thing inside of them, this desire to expand and become more of a we, more of a larger family. Or even if it's just you have one wife and she has one child, or maybe no children, and then you have children with your subsequent wife or wives. There's something that is driven in a purposeful way to create a healthy family. We're not talking about those that get into polygyny and have these really negative or even evil intentions in some cases. We're speaking to those men that say, you know what, I want to expand my family, and this is the way in which I can do it. And there's an infrastructure, if I can speak, there's an infrastructure, and it's important to hit these goals and not destroy my family. Because as much as we don't want to destroy our marriage, I don't think that men in general sit up and say, well, let me figure out how to ruin this marriage, my family, my legacy, my name. May some things fall out of their hands and happen? Absolutely. We're people, and those things do happen. One thing I really want to get into is talking about peace in relation to how women and men view it. These are some studies that show that women prioritize emotional intimacy and connection in their relationships. And oftentimes, some men will have that aspect of shared responsibilities in some cases, and sexual gratification. I bring that up because that is something that people like to put on polygyny constantly. Oh, it's all about sexual gratification. Now, this is a study. This is across the board that someone had actually conducted. And they said, well, this is the two things that the two different sexes typically prioritize. Now, men in polygyny don't just go, well, this is all about sexual gratification. No, absolutely not. They'll be saying things like, and meaning it, I want to become more. Coach Nazir says that all the time. I want it to become more, and not just say, okay, I'm going to just stop right here on my growth journey. No, maybe I want to stretch and see what I can do. Right. And I knew I needed to stretch. If I didn't stretch myself, I wouldn't be sitting here and being Coach Fatimah. And I'm still stretching myself. And I sit in humility, but I also understand that growth had to happen in my life as well. And I needed to be stretched. And I said, maybe this is the way. Maybe this is what I needed in order to do it. Well, no, it's not just about sexual gratification, but that does get thrown onto polygyny. And women, we like to express our emotions and seek validation through the support of our partners and our husbands oftentimes. But men might reserve that in expressing emotion differently than we do. And it has to be said. Let's get into this. Now, this is a really big, big, big question right here. The whole why do we not want to share our husbands with another wife? I love bringing this up because I love this phrase. We need to come to terms with terminology and the meaning in which we give it. One of the things I knew growing up as a child is that I didn't want to deal with share my, this, I don't want to share all the time. I want some stuff to be mine. So then it becomes a my mentality, or my movement, or, and then we start saying my kids, my husband. What I found, especially in my own life, that it wasn't serving me to say that every single time. Sometimes I had to say, Nazir, Coach Nazir, our husband, or to people that might know me or not know me, I might have to say the father of my children, my husband, Coach Nyla. Because what happened is that I understood that. I said, okay, Fatimah, what is the meaning in which you're giving the word share? Why don't you want to share your husband? Now, disclaimer, I knew that my husband could practice polygyny and be consistent with it because he had been consistent in many areas of his life before polygyny. That was one of his attributes. So I didn't fear it because I said, well, he'll just crash and burn. He won't do good with this at all. That wasn't it. It wasn't it at all. What it was that I said, I know he can do it. I know he can do it. But when, in knowing that he could do it, part of the heartbreak was speaking to the fact that he's going to be providing in these areas from somebody that is not me. And how do I deal with the emotion of it? Although I know it's noble, it's grappling and unlearning much of what I thought to be true growing up. And some of the reasons why we don't want to share our husbands is because of cultural beliefs. Again, the Western world will say, this is not allowed. We don't want you doing this. This is monogamy protects the married man, the man. So he can go, you could be married to this woman. We're going to hold you accountable for this one woman. And then you just play with the rest of them. But we're going to keep our focus on this one right here. That's for protection for you. And whatever kids you got out there, you let her deal with it. And then jealousy, emotional attachment, respect, violation of trust, fear of loss, or devastation to our children. And we're not downplaying this. These are things that are really happening. These are the things that I feared. Not all of them, maybe, because I wasn't never really one to go, I wonder what they think of me. I can't do that, because once I became Muslim and I started becoming a hijabi, it was like I was met with judgment anyway. And then I'm already a Black woman, so then there's a judgment. And then I'm already in America, so then you're a Muslim Black woman in America, and that whole stigma that people try to throw on you. You feel like there's a threat or a sense of abandonment, possibly, or old mom, new mom syndrome with your children. Oh, that's the new mom. Let's stay over here and run over here by her. My children know who their mother is. And if they have more than one or a bonus mom, and that's not to say, oh, my co-wife's coming in here and she's taking over. No, it's to say that respectfully, my children do know who their mother is. But sometimes women can fear that they might be outmothered by their co-wife. But I look at it this way. I'm like, there's more people to love my children than I love that. Was it always that way? Absolutely not. But it's part of that journey, that growth journey, right? So I have a question, and put this down in the comments. Who is your first love? Who was your first love? Now, here's a picture of my first love. So I'm going to ask you the question. So ask yourself that. What would be your answer? I'm going to look over at the comments. So put in the comments, who was your first love? It could be your spouse. It could be somebody way long ago. Now, this picture is relatively old, okay? This picture is an older picture of myself and Coach Nazir when we were very young and we were parents. So what you don't see on my lap is our oldest beautiful daughter. All our children and bonus babies are beautiful, and I love them very dearly. But we have our daughter, she's on my lap, and she's wearing something that matches her father's sweater. And if you know that sweater, the name of that sweater, put it in the comments. I want to see how many of you know what brand of sweater that is. My daughter said something so hilarious. So if you stay to the end of this awesome webinar, I'm glad to be here with you all. I'm going to see if you were right. So let's see if you're right. But let's go back to it. So what would be your answer? And I had to look at this picture now, although I've seen it for many, many years and I know what it is. I said, well, my first love in that photo is me. It's me, right? Because that's the first person that I needed to love, was me. In whatever journey, whatever hardship, whatever triumph, whatever tragedy I was in, was me. Now, I remember before I said a little comment about my sister passing away. The morning she passed away, I specifically remember being in that room. Not immediately. I was not in the room immediately at all. I was not. I was down the hallway, and my 9-year-old sister, who was the youngest at the time of my father's 5 children, she ran down the hallway to me, and I had my 1-year-old daughter, who's now 23-year-old married woman, with me. And it was interesting that my 9-year-old sister, my sister, ran toward me down the hallway, and it spoke to who she needed in that moment. I remember in that moment, I not only needed to be there for her, I needed to be there for my daughter, my 9-year-old sister, and myself. because I didn't want to upset my child because she's so young. She was a year old when my sister passed away, that I had to control what I had said to myself in that moment. I had to love myself enough in that moment not to cry out, not to fall on the floor, and not to upset my child. But it all had to start happening within me. That was a heavy moment. It was a difficult moment, although we all knew it was coming because she was a cancer patient. So we knew it was coming. So to love yourself first, especially in a situation where you're sharing a husband, is extremely important to understand how beautiful it is to say, wait, stop, breathe in this moment. Don't lose yourself in this moment and not discover that this is stretching you right now. So part of loving oneself is understanding that, just like in an airplane, the oxygen mask goes on you first, not the person next to you, because you can't help them if you don't help you first, right? Okay, let's return and let's move forward. So some reasons we don't want to share our husband is because of what it may or might make of us. We may fear that we won't have that connection. We might be replaced, or there's a threat to the family. Someone might take our children. There might be sexual abandonment, mistreatment, maybe, and this has been brought up before, we might get past a disease because, of course, we've been told that, and it's been stated, and there's been an assumption that men that practice polygyny and the wives that they have are full of diseases, you know. And let me just speak to this very quickly, that men that have healthy intentions have healthy sexual practices. It is all encompassing. It is how they move about their lives. They don't entertain. Now, is that everybody? But everybody doesn't have healthy intentions either. Let's speak to that. There are some predators. There are some men that pick wives like daisies and just go, you know what, I'm done with this set. Let me grab a whole new set. You know, those things like that. So I do want to make sure I say that, because it does need to be said, because it does happen. There's some victims of it, but it is the person that is practicing polygyny. But to say we're full of disease and we're all dumb women, we're void of critical thinking, we're uneducated, we have no self-esteem, is very, very vicious, and it's a very venomous accusation. And I think sometimes people just want to throw that out there to try to hurt us. Another major concern is the divorce. You know, the ultimate case of divorce. What if we get divorced behind it? One thing, and I want to see thus far how many of you are enjoying this information. Please put it in the comments. Put on a scale of 1 to 10. Let me know how you're liking the information, because we got to keep the conversation going so that we are sure that we're here if no one else wants to hear what we have to say as people that are in polygyny. And I've heard some really incredible, beautiful stories of polygyny practice and done the right way, and might need a little guidance, and that's okay. And then I've also heard of some really horrifying stories, and we want to thank you so much, sis. 10 of 10. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Brittany Shotwell, thank you for the love. I really, really appreciate it so much. And all the kind wishes and the salams down in the chat. Keep them coming. I really love this. This is awesome information, and it's exciting because it's getting to people that need to hear it. It's not about getting in front of everyone. It's about getting in front of the right people. So, and I should have really said this before, but if it's not for you, and this might be too deep and you're not ready yet, and you're skeptic about it, and it's not ever going to work, feel free. You might not even like what I have on. It doesn't matter, but feel free. It's okay to leave this conversation. Everybody's not going to be ready, but for those of you that want to continue, let's continue with this presentation, because we want to get down to the rest of what is going on. But yes, 10 of 10. Thanks so much for that. I really appreciate it. So this is an exercise that I would invite you all to do with your spouse. So you're going to visualize in your head. This is a 7-breath forehead connection repair exercise. So if there is something going on, and maybe you need to pause and stop and reconnect with your spouse. So if there's some conflict resolution that needs to happen, just know, stop the argument in its tracks. Say, look, let's circle back around in 30 minutes. Let's wait until tomorrow. Let's wait. One thing that I don't like to do is have conversations, or I tell some of my clients, don't have conversation when it's that time of the month, because we're not crazy. However, some things might get out of control, or we might feel a little bit worse than we might have felt before, that time of the month. And I want to make sure that, let's be real and honest about that. It doesn't matter. It could be a backache. It could be a cramp. It could be a headache. It could be a heartbreak, a headache. It could be any of those things. But to be able to offer yourself some grace by saying, you know what? I don't feel like myself today. I don't feel good. And it might not be the appropriate time to talk about this, but I do want to hear what you have to say. I mean, inviting our spouses to have conversations with us that might not be easy, but it's okay to talk about things at another time and let them know, let's talk about it another time. But this exercise, let's get right into it, is very important for connecting with your spouse. So you're going to, step one, grab your spouse. Don't grab them, y'all. Let's gently invite them into this exercise and just tell them, I want to try something out. What you're going to do is look into each other's eyes and take 7 breaths while looking at one another. Don't need to cross your eyes, guys. You don't need to do that. You don't need to give yourself a headache. If you got the giggles, maybe that's okay. But offer 7 breaths to increase this nonverbal connection and communication. And by the end of the 7 breaths, what you're going to do is, by the end, you're going to give 7 things that you're grateful for about your spouse. About your spouse. Now, this is an exercise in gratitude and connectedness and coming back together. And I think sometimes being in this world, and I know full well, I don't even think, but being in this world that's so fast paced and there's so much going on, and I think they said the divorce rates have went up, but people are trying to get their feet wet a little bit more and wanting to get married again. And it's called rebound weddings, because after COVID and so many things going on in the world, people are having this fear of not having that companionship. So if you do already have it, letting our spouses know that we're grateful for them. And then this is an exchange of gratitude. It's not a one-way street, but you're going to hold those breaths, or take out 7 breaths. Breathe in, breathe out, inhale, exhale. I'm not going to tell y'all to eat an onion sandwich and do this exercise. That might not work. So let's make sure that we swish before we do this exercise. And I joke, but this is an incredible value to your relationship. You can do it once a day. You can do it every week. You can do it a couple times a week. And this will really be very freeing. And it's a gift to the relationship. Sometimes we're just not gifting our relationships enough in a day. And then people can kind of feel like they're not being appreciated or underappreciated. So that's something we do want to avoid. Now let's talk about maintaining your mindset and your mastery. So much of this is mindset and mastery. So perspective, purpose, and peace is understanding that our husbands are different from us and they're not women. Okay. And we must hold ourselves as, not just being a wife. Let's think about what we are outside of being a wife, because that's important to the success of who we want to be. There's got to be so much more than just hyper focusing on our husbands. And part of not sharing our husbands or sharing our husbands in polygyny is understanding that we're going to have the communication that is appropriate at the appropriate time, knowing that jealousy is natural and envy is something different. That's when you don't want anybody to have something that you have, and you'll do anything to avoid it or stop them. Or if it means, you know what, let your family and your children be destroyed. I really don't care as long as mine's not. Or you just can't simply have peace in your life. One thing I know about men that practice polygyny is they have really big hearts, meaning when people say, well, you know what, you can't love more than one woman at a time. Oh, yes, you can. I love 4 women. My 4 daughters, I love my bonus daughter, I love my co-wife. But while I was having 4 daughters in my household and they're babies, middle school, infant, whatever, teenagers, grown women, I love those 4 women at the same time. And people might say, well, those are your daughters. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But I have the ability and the capacity to love them at the same time. But they provide things for me in different ways as their mother. I provide things to our individual relationships differently. So I don't talk to my oldest daughter the same way I talk to my 10-year-old son. My oldest daughter will be 28. I don't talk to her the same way. She's a married woman. She's a mom. So the conversation's different. And the men's wives are not their children. However, we're all the relationships that we have. I'll give you another example. So my co-wife, Coach Nyla, right? I talk to her differently than I talk to one of my besties. Now, she's a very dear friend of mine. She's my family. She's my sister, Coach Nyla, right? However, we're married to the same man. So there's some boundaries that I don't have to observe over here with my best friends that I do with her, right? We have to keep some healthy boundaries as women that are sharing the same husband, right? So I took away the stigma, the negativity of the word share and said, because I had to ask myself different questions as a woman that has a man or husband that has more than one wife. Instead of saying, well, why is he over there? He shouldn't be over there. I said, well, he's supposed to be there. That's his wife's house too. Just like he's supposed to be at the house we created together. He's supposed to be at the house they created together, the home. He's supposed to help her. That's his wife. He's supposed to help me. I'm his wife. Now, I don't get all access. He's our husband 24/7. We're his wives 24/7. However, there's healthy boundaries in place. There's a schedule in place, and we all honor that fact. That's a fact in our family. So to not create disturbance, that doesn't mean our feelings are ignored. That doesn't mean we avoid a feeling. That doesn't mean we don't matter. It's just the opposite. In saying, yes, we share the same husband, but I'm not willing to destroy my marriage because he's married again, because that marriage has nothing to do with me. I'm over here curating the beauty of my marriage without trying to create an ugliness or disruption or disturbance within his other marriage or in my own, because I don't want to create. So that's why these hard conversations are important, not hostile, hard conversations. And of course, having common goals. And if you have to readjust, and that's okay too. So if you have goals as a family or as a married couple, and you have to improve on design, that's okay. But understanding that our husband's perspective is different than ours. Their purpose is different than ours. And they want peace. And it might look different than ours. And I always love to ask myself this question. And I invite the women that are listening to the sound of the reach of, however far my voice goes within this webinar, do you want your husband to win? One thing about that question is that when he wins, we all win. I learned that about my own husband. When he wins, we all win. You know how? Because he's going to see to it. There's a difference between personality and character. There's a distinct difference between those two things. And we must make sure we don't have to, but that we don't confuse it. Your personality might tell you to take a bat and knock every window out of somebody's car. Maybe you just feel like it, but somebody having a good personality and then them creating these different behaviors that support and build their character matters. So for myself, in sharing a husband that has another wife, knowing and asking myself the proper questions is vital to the success of my own marriage. Instead of saying belittle, disturb, disrupt, because one of the most violent things we can do as women is belittle ourselves and say, you know what, you're not worthy. There's something wrong with you. You lack something. That's why he married again. And I remember, I believe Coach Nazir was talking about this or training really deeply on this. And he said, look, when men look at a wife provide so much and make it so beautiful, it was a video on why he, after 15 years, married again. And he sees his wife make something so beautiful or create this beauty, then this is where it was so powerful for me. And it almost brought me to tears. And that's saying a lot because it takes a lot to do that. Um, but when he stated something, and I'm paraphrasing, to have that beauty be in his life again and then expand family. And it wasn't a selfish thing like, well, I want beauty twice. I want this twice just for me. No. But I was like, I would want that too. Because making marriage so beautiful that you want to do it again. And I thought that was really beautiful. And I would have remembered a time that I wouldn't have been able to really hear that or digest it. Yes, and absolutely controlling our emotions and saying, you know what, let me sit for a minute, reevaluate this, and let me offer salat and let me ask Allah. And I'm a practicing Muslim woman to help me with my understanding of what's going on so that I might be better, so that I might be able to communicate or understand what's going on and just know that this is something inside of him and it doesn't mean that I lacked in any area. There's something that is beautiful when you embrace that. There's a confidence that comes back. I had to regain my confidence. I had to regain my creativity. I had to say, wait a minute, hold on. This has nothing to do with me at all. At all. Yes, he looked like the bad guy. I looked like the idiot for staying with him. And my co-wife looked like the home wrecker to society and all these different things. And I said, no, I get to say how I feel about this. I don't need anybody to dictate to me anything negative. I need to speak life into myself and say and know full well that I've brought substance and I've brought something to this marriage that made it beautiful, along with him, that made it beautiful to the point where he said, you know what? And I said this and I'll say it again. How much more time did he have to practice polygyny? How much more time did he have to discover more and become more? And I had to sit back and say, I don't get to tell him to do that and when he can do it. I just knew that I could control me, and anything outside of me, I couldn't control. But what is beautiful about controlling oneself is that you get to tell yourself the narrative of, these are the things I celebrate about me. These are the things I celebrate within my marriage. And it's okay. And it's going to be okay because I'm deciding to do the work and show up for myself. The person that needs you on your A game the most in a day is you. You need to be on your A game for you. And anybody that benefits from your working out, you're eating right, you taking a nap so that when you lay your baby down and you take a nap, you get up, you can take care of your child. That matters. So how many of you, put it in the comments, how many of you can relate to that? You know, taking care of yourself first and foremost, even if you didn't have it all figured out before, even if you still don't. How many of you know the benefit? Put your hand up, put a thumbs up in the chat down below and let me know how many of you can relate to that. I know I had to learn that. I had it backwards and I didn't really speak it out of my mouth, but I prioritized husband and children, husband and children. I was like, I'll get around to me. I'll get around to me sometime. And then I started to kind of lose myself and say, I haven't painted in a while. I haven't created a design in a long time. I haven't practiced interior design. I should redecorate this room. I should read a book. You know, I should have a spa day. I should do something for myself. I should go to my Quran class. I should study Arabic more. I should do so many things. Visit a friend, take in a movie, have a girls' night. I lost myself in trying to do it backwards, and nobody asked me to do this backwards. Nobody said, prioritize your children and your husband first, and not you ever. That wasn't it. So if you have enjoyed this, I'm so excited. I want to make sure that I invite you, and congratulations for understanding that this is a journey. and to come into this and just be open to hearing the information. It's not always easy because when we hear sharing our husband, it can raise a few little eyebrows. So yes, if you're interested in truly living a life of fulfillment, make sure you visit learnwithcoachfatimah.com for details and start your journey with me in nourishing fulfillment. I actually coach and counsel women of all walks of life in their journey on trying to discover what it is that should drive them forward in their own life and how to live a fulfilling life. I didn't really know how to do that. I had to travel, I had to read the books, I had to go to so many different mentorship programs and sit and do so much research. And the great part is you don't have to do that. I'm here for that, especially. So if you want to learn more about that, be sure again to visit me at learnwithcoachfatimah.com for details. This was so awesome. I know so many people have so much to say about, look, I don't believe in what you believe in. I don't have to. So many people are practicing polygyny. They're not Muslim. There's different people from all walks of life, and polygyny predates Islam. And some people don't know that. However, there's a way to do it and be successful with it long term. One thing I knew I had to get out of my head about was that this is not going to work. I started saying, what if it does? What if this does work? What if it does? And everybody's not going to be practicing polygyny. Polygyny is not to be practiced by everybody because some people can't practice monogamy right. And some of these issues come up in monogamy as well. We know that. So understanding that it is not for everybody. We're not saying it. We're pro morals, period, whether it's monogamy or polygyny. Some women don't want a husband at their house every single day. And a lot of women want to be in polygyny because they want that space to work on themselves. And this works for them. And I'm not going to tell them that, well, that's not good for you. No, they know what might be good for them. They might be in a place where they're able to embrace that. I had to get to that point where I said, I'm able to do some things with my children, specifically my daughters, especially spending time with them. And two of them want to be in polygyny and two don't. And I embrace both ways. And I support both, all my daughters in what they want to do. Whether they say, look, I have to be in polygyny. And the other two might say, not me. It's not for me. I agree with it, but it's just not for me. I support that for them. And they're adults. They can say that for themselves and with the help of their father. And it's not easy to find men that are going to be there and be able to do this consistently and do the work. You don't just throw your child or your daughter at someone and say, here, marry her. She wants to be in polygyny, or go goodbye. No, there's some vetting that has some investigating that has to go on. And there's some education that my daughters specifically need if that's what they want to do with their lives. So I know that. And I had to understand that for myself and make sure that I knew, and the whole PR team already knows, that we're not saying this for everyone. And I'm not here for anybody to agree with everything I'm saying, because I'm not talking to everyone. I'm talking to the people that are in it. Their husbands are thinking about it, and they might be trying to figure it out. And what are the best practices in this situation? So again, the women are not practicing polygyny, the men are. And we're not going to act like it's always, this is not sunshine and rainbows, as my co-wife, Coach Nyla, always says, because that's the truth. That's the real. However, I'm speaking to those that really want their marriages to work. And sometimes people have to make the ultimate decision and it doesn't work and they have to move on. And that's understandable as well. But if they have someone in their lives and they're that person for them, and their energy is the same and the intentions are the same, and they have healthy boundaries in place, because some people do want to steamroll these boundaries and not respect them. Of course, you have those people. People are going to be people, and everybody is not in it to stay in it. And there are some abuses that are happening. So we don't ignore that. That's true. I've coached and counseled a few of them, and some women and some men have had to decide, No, I'm good. I don't need it. This not work for me. Or I'm going to try it again. This time it didn't work. I'm going to try it again. And it might take some years and some months and some time and some healing. And if people need therapy, they should get that. I'm not a therapist, but if people need that, then that's what they're allowed to do. I'll never tell anybody don't get therapy, don't get treatment, don't, or to stay in a situation where there's abuses happening. We've recorded many videos on YouTube about the different atrocities and the success stories in polygyny, because there are some, but some people, they want to be private. They don't want to be um, in a situation where they're met with judgment. And some women do want to share their husband. That's what they want. That's what they ask for. I had a friend of mine ask her husband to be in polygyny. She begged him. She said, "Can you please?" She said, "I love him to death. I love him to death. But I don't need to be up under him all the time, all day long." And I said, "Well, why don't you want to?" And she's a Black woman. And she said, "Look," and I'm saying that because we had similar upbringings. And she said, she said, "Fatimah, do you know he told me no?" I said, "Well, why?" And she said, "Because of responsibility." He said the responsibility was very important. It was heavy. And he said, I'm not equipped. I don't think I can handle the responsibility." I said, "You know what? That was beautiful." And she said, "I had to accept it." He knew his limitation. And some men can say, "You know what? I can do it. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best." And I love when a man there's nothing, as the quote, nothing like a trying man, a man that's trying to do his best. So, and with the proper intentions. And we're not speaking to those that are like, "You know what, I'm in here to abuse people." And it's funny because some people think they can't share a husband. I used to think that too. And I'm sitting here sharing a husband, and I'm absolutely okay with it, because it took some growth, and everybody's not going to do that, and everybody's not ready, and all these things like that. I know that growth, we don't tell a plant, we don't plant a seed and then we tell the seed the next day to sprout up. Be a tree now. You've had a day. We don't tell another thing to do that. So yes, it is a process. But if you stand still, you're going to stay stuck. That's typically what can happen. And life will keep going. Life will keep moving. If there's a car crash on the highway, the world and the traffic in it does not stop because that one car crashed. It'll still move. Maybe it won't be the best way. Maybe there'll be other accidents, but you got to keep going. Growth journey is a journey. I've never sat up and said, "Well, I stopped growing. I'm done. I've learned it all. I don't need to learn another thing." So it's not to sit here and sell anybody on anything. You don't have to be in polygyny, and you don't also have to be in monogamy. You don't have to have a bad marriage, and you also don't have to experience the success or the reward of a successful marriage. It's all up to the people that are in the marriage. So nobody can wreck my marriage but myself and my husband. Nobody else has that power. They don't. And they don't sit here and go, "I have the power to destroy the two of them." No. Mm-mm. Because then that would require you to have access to my inner thoughts and the inner thoughts of Coach Nazir. Nobody can come in between you but the two people that are in the marriage, the people that are participating in the marriage. So I enjoyed this webinar so much because, again, we want to keep the conversation going. I intend to keep the conversation going. So do the other two coaches, Coach Nazir and Coach Nyla as well. We're going to keep it going. We have to, because these are the safe spaces that we want to invite people to. And speaking of which, make sure that you guys are checking out our outstanding personal relationships community at oprcommunity.com or oprcampus.com. I'm sorry, I misspoke. oprcampus.com for details. There's so much within our community. It's really, really great. I always want to invite everyone into the community, into the campus, where you can continue your polygyny and marriage education. We have meet and greets, we have meetups, we have challenges, and you can interact with one another in there. But be sure that you also visit me at learnwithcoachfatimah.com for details on how to be in that life that's truly fulfilling for my 12-week Nourishing Fulfillment coaching program. I'm so excited about that. Worked with so many incredible women, and they have really enjoyed leading a life that is something that they didn't think they'd be doing. They really were like, you know what, I'm at a crossroads. I don't think this is for me. I don't think I can handle it. And come to find out, they really led the charge. And some people are really happy to, some of my wonderful clients have shared with me some amazing stories, and I really wanted to share that with you all. Victoria Caldwell says, Coach Fatimah saved my life. Her counseling was what I learned on when I was going through my darkest times. She advised me on things that I didn't know I would need until the time came. It was her advice, her counsel that kept me together. Allah knew in his perfect wisdom that I would need her and put her in my life. This one was really, every time I read this one, it's, excuse me, heavy, because there's more to her story. And it was just so beautiful that she opened herself up that way. Really beautiful. One of my other amazing clients, Rebecca Bison, Coach Fatimah is a coach who has put in the work and actually gone through the ups and downs. And I really have. And she's such another special person in my life. And for her to just sit and get coaching and counseling countless times in our private moments, and for her to put herself out here and share this was incredible to hear. And it, you know, this part of my presentation or this webinar is the heart for me, because all these women have incredible stories of triumph and challenge, and they've been stretched in ways that have really, really inspired me. Even as their coach, I learned so much from my clients as well, but I've poured so much into them in return, that for them to say such endearing things about me and my character and my coaching and my counseling matters. And it's just like a diamond, something very precious to me. Aisha Day says, Coach Fatimah is warm through her empathy, inspiring by her knowledge, and ooh, so funny and humor. You guys see the U under there? She's so amazing. She's a really special sister and a client of mine. With every session, she inspired me through her expertise, gifted me with clear guidance and simple directives. I would recommend Coach Fatimah to women, whether single, married, monogamously, or polygamously, Muslim or of other faith. She has a heart, skill, and knowledge to accommodate all of us. This was such a beautiful portion of this webinar. This is the part I think I looked for the most in bringing this to everyone, because to see so many say such incredible things about me, and I knew where I was and where I needed to be. And I remember this quote when I said I was in my dark place. This quote said, turn the light on. And what I had to learn is that my light rested inside of me, but I had to do the work. So for these wonderful, wonderful women to share with me their journey was something that was a gift for me, but to pour back into them and dedicate myself to their growth and part of their healing, because we know our happiness is our responsibility and not that of someone else. Some of the women use the term polygamy, although Muslims practice polygyny. It can kind of get mixed up and lost in translation, that the men practice the lifestyle of having more than one wife and not more than one spouse, male or female. So some of them didn't make that distinction, and that's okay. I know what they meant. So I thank them so much for opening up their hearts and allowing this to come out, this beauty to come out. So with that, I hope you guys got some gems from this live webinar. I'm hoping so much to see you again next week as we continue this conversation, because this is a very vast subject. It's not one that we're going to just pack up into 1 hour and we're just done with it. Absolutely not. We want to keep it going so that we can continue to communicate what's going on with us and how to overcome, especially in this area of sharing our husbands and polygyny, perspective, purpose, and peace. We'll be back again. So with that being said, thank you all. I congratulate you for opening up yourself to this conversation, although it might be scary, but change is scary. And oftentimes, in order to get to our healing, we got to kind of walk through the fire of some of these conversations that might not be so comfortable, but we know nothing grows in our comfort zone, right? So we got to move forward in order to grow. And we never tell a child when they're learning how to walk, even if it's little baby steps, stay put, don't walk any farther than this, don't grow anymore. But we're going to get there, and we're going to dedicate our time to continuing once again this conversation. And I hope to see you all. Yes, growth. Absolutely. We're going to put growth in the comments down below. So make sure that you all, and I'm going to make sure that I leave you all with a little GLC. So make sure you're growing intentionally, loving fearlessly, and connecting on a higher level every single day. I'm Coach Fatimah. I'll see you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
Isn't it frustrating when you think about your husband that you've had for a long time, or maybe even a short time, and then they finally decide that they want to practice polygyny? Then you go, what am I supposed to do with that once you decide you want to practice polygyny? Am I going to be thrown outside? Are you going to divorce me? What's going to happen to me? You go through all these emotions and all this frustration and trying to figure it out. And then you're on the emotional roller coaster going round and round and round with your own ruminating thoughts. You feel defeated. You feel jealous. You go, what if she's younger? What if she's smarter? What if she's taller? What if she's smaller? What if he likes her more? Those are some of the things that I found extremely frustrating, and I did not know what to do as a wife for so long and a mother. And then I said, well, we can kind of have some fun together alone and all these things like that. But then no, he had this idea of polygyny. So I said, well, where do I fit in? And then I discovered that I had to make a choice. I said, I can either stay in a place of hurt and feeling betrayed and confused and dealing with my own emotions and this new normal that he decided to sign up for. So with that, I said, that's enough. I don't want that anymore for me. So I made a big decision, and that was to make sure that I read the books, healed myself, travel, and uplift my own self-esteem. Because I did that, I also decided to create the Nourishing Fulfillment Counseling Program. I wanted to be a solution, and I wanted to be part of my own solution and help others in the process. I know what it's like going on that emotional roller coaster and not knowing that, okay, this is something that my husband wants to do. He wants to practice polygyny. What can you do? You can only control yourself, because again, you can't control anybody else. So with that, I want to make sure that I offer it to you as well. It's so important to understand that growth has to happen, and growth can't happen if we're stuck in our own comfort zone. So with the Nourishing Fulfillment Counseling Program, I make sure that I equipped others with the same things that I had in those same practices for best results with less legwork. So to learn more about my Nourishing Fulfillment Coaching and Counseling Program, visit me at CoachFatimah.com for details, or hit that button below in order to apply. I will see you inside. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
That's that first example I got from Sophia. I can't. I'm in the house.
I said I can't use it.
You scroll. All the way.
I used the oil on this.
Huh?
I said it works, so it's so nice.
You just gotta make sure you slow it down.
What?
Your video, you get to know me one. Because the pictures in the text went by really fast.
It was 6. Your daddy put it on. We put on like 6 seconds, 7 seconds. I don't know why I did that.